hour number 8 of doing these videos. A History 101 Lecture 16, 19th Century America. 19th Century Reform. This part, we're talking about the Temperance movement. And I'm getting punch drunk. I'm getting a little tired. Not that I'm actually drunk water, but I'm getting a little tired. Anyways, the Temperance movement, another aspect of 19th Century Reform. The Temperance movement is almost the poster child outside of maybe anti-slavery. Temperance movement is probably the second biggest or really big example, poster child of this 19th century era of reform. I guess I would put number 1 anti-slavery, number 2 temperance movement. There's a book. It's old now. It's an older book now. It's called The Alcoholic. It's called The Alcoholic Republic. And in this book, here, let me bring it up. In this book, the author argues that colonial Americans drank super heavily, even more heavily than today, meaning the time the book was published. The Alcoholic Republic. Let me bring it up real quick. But anyways, and so it, like I said, it's an older book. Here, let me, the Alcoholic Republic. I read it when I was in college, so you can see how old it is. But it's an older book. It's an interesting book. I recommend it. The author argued colonial America was basically drunk, alcoholic. I mean, that's his argument. And the reason he says this is giving a motivation for the temperance movement. When you had American society, American culture develop in the early 19th century, drinking was a part of American life. You drank, right? There are no Mormons around to tell you not to drink. So, the Alcoholic Republic, a very interesting book. As you can see, it's older. It's published in 1979, but it's an older book. But it is, again, extremely interesting. It gives you kind of a motivation about why there is a temperance movement. Early 19th century Americans look at American society and say, "Dear Lord, they're all drunk." And so, the temperance movement. 1826, the American Temperance Society. Some advocated for tolerance, meaning you just don't drink so much. Others argued for outright prohibition. And we tend to think of prohibition of alcohol as a 20th century thing. 12 states by 1857, 12 states by 1857 had prohibition laws. Were making the sale and distribution of alcohol illegal. Maine, Neil S. Dow was a big temperance movement person of the era, and the Maine Law of 1851, was an example of this prohibition movement. The argument being, if Americans could stop drinking, demon rum, as it says, if Americans could just stop drinking, all of America's social ills would end. Utopia could begin. Francis Willard, important temperance movement era. The Beecher family. You want to know the Beecher family because you know how the Kardashians are super famous today. You call the Beecher family the Kardashian family back then, but not exactly the opposite. Like Kardashians are, horribly immoral and bad, but they're very, very famous. The Beecher family is kind of the opposite. They're Kardashian level famous. Everyone knew every member of the Beecher family. But these were virtuous people. So they were in every reform movement of the 19th century. The Beecher family was a family of ministers, reformers, writers, activists. I mean, it was a family. Okay, men and women. The Beecher family. They were involved in, I'm not kidding, every reform movement of the 19th century. Bible societies, asylum reform, prison reform, education reform, moral reform, anti-slavery, temperance reform, I mean, you name the reform, okay, they somehow were involved. The Beecher family. So definitely, if you wanted to study a family, look up the Beecher family. They were like everywhere. Everyone knew them. They were extremely famous family. Family of ministers and reformers. That's it. They just reformed society, kind of a thing. So Demon Run is what it was called. This is a cutoff picture. Here, let me bring up here. The Drunkard's Progress is a painting from the 19th century. Let me give you a full version so you can see the full version. This was used. It was used during the yikes. This is used during the era. I wish we could get a clearer version, but it was used during the era to show you the path of somebody who is an alcoholic, is drunk. It starts with a little drink, and you go over the bridge to eventually kill yourself. You see the mother and the daughter crying in the background. You disappointed your wife and children by becoming an alcoholic, and you eventually lose everything, and death by suicide, you kill yourself. And so, the Drunkard's Progress, this is a Temperance cartoon, well, not cartoon, Temperance drawing or painting. Kind of highlights that era. What you should do. Okay?